iFlyTech has created this very interesting e-note tablet. And to be completely honest with you, when they first reached out to me, I was like, okay, another tablet. To be honest, I mean, it's way smaller than I thought. I thought it was gonna be about the size of the Remarkable. So when it showed up, I was like, wow, that's actually really small. I don't know how I feel about that. But that's all part of this bigger picture of, I thought just another tablet, and pleasantly surprised at the angle they've taken with this and the functionality that's in this little tiny thing here. And we're gonna get into that today. Before we do though, on this channel we talk about tech from an intentional living and minimalist perspective. We talk about tech from an experiential point of view instead of getting into the nitty-gritty of the ins and outs of the device and specs and all that stuff. So if that sounds cool to you, please consider subscribing, like this video for more. Special thanks to iFlyTech for sending this product out for free. I'm also getting paid for this review, but as always on this channel, and I will always promise this, honest reviews on this channel. So take all that as you may. Link in the description if you want to pick yours up. And yeah, let's get into this. I try not to script things. I just kind of want to give sort of my feel about products and sort of just kind of chat with you all about how I feel about this. Now, as I mentioned before, when I first was reached out to by iFlyTech, which by the way, it's a company that specializes in like devices, like recording devices like you see a reporter use, but also in devices that translate. They create these really cool and well designed, I might add, you know, nice materials, they look great products, but more so for that position of like translation. So when they reached out to me, I was like, I don't really have like a use case for translation. But then they recommended this device. And of course, you all like e-ink tablets, note-taking tablets, stuff like that. I do as well. I said, sure, why not? And after using this for a few days, I get it. And it's a little bit different than something like Remarkable or Books or Bigme or Supernote or any of those other guys out there. They have sort of a different approach to this. So first and foremost, I don't think this is a note-taking device. Yes, you take notes. Yes, it has a pen. Yes, it's got a screen for writing and for reading. But as you can see up here at the top are, I think, speakers and microphones. I think there's also microphones down here, these little tiny cutouts, which is interesting. But the thing I see this for, and in the past I reviewed the Pen Star. This is in that sort of same vein of, if you're an employee somewhere, if you're a manager somewhere, if you're executive somewhere and you're doing a lot of meetings and you want to have notes from those meetings, this is the perfect device for that. I think any sort of like professional, you've got notes, scheduling, reading of PDFs. You've got back here, you've got a document scanner. So like this is very much geared towards the professional workplace person who's doing a lot of meetings, scanning documents, reading documents, editing documents, needs, you know, summarization of meetings, things like that. And I think what they've done here is really interesting. So the first thing I'm gonna note is down here on this little hot bar, as I'll call it. Over here on the left is basically ChatGPT integration. This is, so my biggest qualm was this. You have to use a ChatGPT, I think, at least the last time I tried this, you have to use an API key from your ChatGPT, which is this long key Chat will create for you. And then you have to manually type it all in, which took me 5 minutes, 10 minutes to type it all in. Note on an e-ink tablet. That was my biggest qualm. It was saying it wasn't working. I gave up and it looks like maybe it did work. So like, how far away is the moon? Which, before we dive into this, typing on this has been not hit or miss. It's been hit. And I know if you've ever typed on an e-ink tablet, it's a little clunky, a little slow. It's still in that vein, and maybe because I know that, I type a lot more intentionally, but you saw how I just typed really quickly. How far away is the moon? It picked all of that up. So that's a huge plus for this thing. Like, the typing experience is great. Let's just see what this does here. So here's the deal. It still might not have gotten my API token key code, whatever it's called, right? Which, that's my biggest qualm. But if you take the time to actually type it in, Technically, this should link up to AI, and this might block a lot of you from purchasing this, but AI is a big part of this, and I hope they come up with a way you can just log into ChatGPT or something with this. But let's pull back a few steps here and talk about this bottom bar. So as you can see, if you push the button and swipe over, it's gonna open up ChatGPT, and you can just use it as generate to answer questions. If you swipe over here from the right side, it's going to open up a quick note. This is a test of me. I don't know who wrote that. It was probably me. So this hotbar is actually not a screen. It does have touch elements, and it can be lit up by the front light, which that's another big plus of this. There is a front light with more warm and cold features, so you can get it dialed in just right. For taking notes at nighttime, reading at night. There's a lot to talk about in this review, so hang in there with me. So there's your hotbar down here, and there's also a few different features, I think, swiping in this middle section. If you swipe up from the bottom, you have all of your open apps and things, so you can quickly, multitask, if you will. Swiping down from the top gives you your sort of quick menu. You've got your date, as well as like Wi-Fi and airplane mode, and you can refresh the screen. Here's your different, lighting that you can have with that front light. You can customize your own as well. There is sound, so you can crank that up and maybe get more out of the speaker if you're listening back to a meeting that was recorded, for instance. You can also write on pretty much anything here. So a PDF, Word doc, if you're reading something in the book section, which I'll show you in a second, you can write on and make notes and stuff too, which is pretty cool. You've got a few different options here. I think the main ones, pen, fountain pen, pencil, and then paintbrush, which I guess could double up as a highlighter if you want to. But there's sort of your quick navigation workaround stuff here. But this here that you're seeing is kind of like your home screen. So let's go across this bar here. So you have notes, which you can either write a note or record a note. We'll get back to that in a second. You have a scheduling system here, which is really nice. You have a calendar, you have a to-do list, you have a focus star, which we'll get to here in a second as well. Some kids like yelling outside. And then your weekly view here as well. Then you have reading, which you can import books. You can use this bookstore, which I think a lot of these books are free. I got The Great Gatsby on here to show you kind of what that looks like. Let's see if we can open it up here, just so you can get an idea. I don't think there's anything special going. You can see here, you can write on a book, which is super cool. I don't know if you'd want to do that. Draw a ticket, notes, you can turn touch off. Lots of opportunities and options here if you want to be reading through PDFs. There's also a whole entire like Microsoft Office suite. It's not Microsoft, it's called like, an Office Center. I don't even really know what all this is. If you click here, we'll find out what it's called. This is your sort of application section, WPS Office, whatever that is. There's more apps. I'm assuming you can sideload apps onto this, like Kindle. I'm still not entirely sure what that means or how to do that, but it is an option, I would think. Not really something I would really use this for. I think the fact, we haven't even talked about build quality. This thing is thin. I think it's appropriately weighted. Like, it's not like a piece of paper that's gonna fly off the desk, but it's also not heavy. It's super thin. You got this little bit of a bump out here, if you can see that on the overhead camera. It's basically a camera bump. One button here, which is a fingerprint reader, which is cool. Sleep and wake button, and then you have your USB-C. And other than that, you can get a little folio for this. They didn't send it out to me, but it sort of locks in with these clips here, which is nice as well. So build quality, amazing. Full metal, aluminum it feels, design. A small bezel if you think about it. I mean, for something like this. The pen is kind of my same qualm that I had with the Pen Star. It's this like plastic feel, which keeps it light, which is nice. You do have an eraser tip here. You have this, replaceable nib here, which I don't think this actually came with any extra nibs. I could have like missed them in the unboxing, but then you do have a button here, and the button is actually used for something really interesting, which is this like special function zone. So anyway, let's come back to that special button here in a second. You can actually connect to like OneDrive, which is interesting for a lot of you. You can have different folders and things like that. So you have your reading schedule notes, right? Let's check out our bookshelf. So I have the user manual, which I read this morning, and it got me really excited, even more so for this thing. Great Gatsby's on there, I'm reading it. You can go ahead and click here and scan in a document, which is cool. I actually haven't tried that, but it does a great job of in the user manual. You can take a picture of a document, you can change the points around the document so you want to frame it up correctly. Then you can go straight into like annotating, marking it up. There's also email functionality here. Email is not something I would ever like heavily use on a device like this, but to be able to mark up a document and then shoot it off via email right here on the system, I think that's the biggest use case. Gmail or other inboxes as well to sign in on. And then obviously you have your gear icon to get in here with all the settings. You can update to the device here. Security, again, you can have a passcode or your finger ID. Here's your OpenAI API key settings. Here's another, just bringing up your app switching, and then you have this drop-down menu. So let's come back over to notes. So you can either just write notes, which we can hit write plus, and you have just this, you can write in a title. Pretty cool, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the writing experience is nothing amazing, but it works, right? But again, I don't think this is a note-taking device as much as a recording and using AI to summarize, right? So we're gonna hit record. I think it goes ahead and starts. Yeah, so you can just immediately do that. You can see in real time, it's going to start transferring the recording to text, whatever that's called. Talk to text, there you go. You can hit tags whenever an important part of the meeting comes up that you wanna remember. You can also hit this button here. So warm tips, the multiplayer mode is still being optimized and the current version is only for fresh experience. Okay, that's the second thing I wanna say about this device and the user manual. Obviously, probably not written in English, but translated to English, and there's a lot of funny language here. I think iFlyTech, if you get more money, if you sell a lot of these, I would invest in just making sure that translation is better. At least in the user manual, I don't know what that really was alluding at, but you can actually have it detect, as you can see this little area right here, it calls it radar recognition or something. So if you're sitting at a meeting and it hears someone over there talking, it will actually show them over there on the grid. It'll show someone there over there on the grid. And it will actually be able to, as well, this little button that I pushed is gonna be able to actually, you can label who was talking when, which is fantastic. And once this is all done, I can be taking notes here too, taking notes. And as I'm going, blah, 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 we're sitting, we're talking, we're eating, we're talking about important business matters. This is important. I write that here, and it doesn't have to be said. I'm doing this to show you a feature here, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and say finish, and we're done. Transcriber recording, continue recording, text editing. Now, I think what you can do here is if I touch taking notes, is this gonna work? Double tap. Okay, so you can click on what I wrote. Blah, 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 we're sitting. And it will actually show you when in the conversation you took that note, right? So if you said like, client seems really warm to this idea, and that was your note, you can click on it and it'll show you in the conversation where they were getting warm to an idea. That feature, fantastic. And again, this is where this starts to get exciting for me. You can also click this here. Again, I don't know if this is gonna work, but let's go ahead and hit this meeting summary, quickly summarize, continue. Let's see if it's able to do it. Let's just do this 3.5 turbo and see if it works. Yeah, validate, fail. Okay. So again, warm tips, like what does that even mean? But in the user guide, if I had this set up correctly, which I just need to take the time and go back in and try that key again. Again, it's like this long of a passcode that you have to type in manually. There is a feature where you can actually use the document scanner to take a picture of the key and then it puts it into the type in bar, but it wasn't doing that for me. So there's some roadblocks here, obviously things they can easily fix with software. I would think it would be an easy fix with software, but being able to take this long meeting, you might have an hour long, all the various notes you took at time-stamped areas, be able to see that, being able to see when you took those notes, being able to see who was speaking and when, have it summarized, send out via email, add in some images it looks like this is really, really cool for the idea, like I said before, for the professional in a business setting. There's well thought out things here, and it's not, let's create a tablet where people can take notes and be intentional, and then we can add in some like cool features for meeting notes. This is like, let's create a device for meetings in the workplace. And what would that look like with the technology we currently have, with a more focused approach, a more natural writing experience like it's paper, but there's a lot going on here. ChatGPT is integrated in, so you can do everything right here on platform. I don't know. I just think this is super cool. Now, okay, another thing I need to point out. This little button here is going to allow us, I don't even know if this is gonna work. Let's go back to like a note that I wrote, for instance. Somewhere where I was playing around, testing. Okay, here we go. So this little button you press is going to allow you to do you have to hold it? Yeah, you have to hold it down. If you make a circle, it's gonna add a to-do list, which will put it back over on your to-do list in the schedule section. If you make a triangle, it will allow you to make a title. If I make a star, this is called, what was it called? A focus star. So have you ever been in a meeting or something, taking notes, and you're like, ooh, I need to remember this point for later, or maybe right after this meeting, to go talk to Brad about a task I need him to do, right? That's not like a task, that's not. So if you make these focus stars, it will put it on your, let's see if I can pull it up over here, schedule focus star, right? So I didn't actually write anything here. It's right there. So this is a section where like, if there's little important nuggets you need to remember from an hour-long meeting, and you have the summary and you have the recording and you have all the notes you took and they're all time-stamped, but there's like little things that are super important that you need to focus on, this is where that goes. I think that is a fantastic idea. I'll also say you can search across text and handwritten in the search, universal search. So it's just like they've been intentional and they thought this thing out fully. I'm all over the place with what I do for work and YouTube and family and stuff, and I don't know if this is perfect for me, but I definitely think someone who is in a lot of meetings, making decisions, executive position, this is like, this is the cream of the crop. Just the way, I can't say it enough. I know I'm rambling on, and I'm gonna wrap it up here. This is for that person, that executive, that employee who's in a lot of meetings, who needs to take notes, who needs to record meetings, not miss important things, to be able to mark when important things were said in a meeting, to know when that was said in a meeting, to have ChatGPT come in and make task lists off that meeting, to make summaries of that meeting, send it off to various employees depending on who said what. There's just a lot here. There's a lot of functionality. There's a few things iFly techniques to work on. I think being able to just log into ChatGPT instead of doing this API thing would be a plus, or just make that API thing a little bit easier for people to do. That's my biggest qualm. Build quality is amazing. The experience is amazing. That's gonna do it for my review of the iFly Tech note-taking, conference recording, meeting recording, personal assistant device here. It's fantastic. I recommend it. Again, links in the description. Thanks again to iFly Tech for sending this out. I'm excited to see what you all do in the future. Thanks so much for watching this video. Again, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing for more, like this video for more. Watch this video next. I think you're gonna love it, and we'll see you in the next one.